to another Race Weekend Canada's F1 show. Dames Nellas, joined by team manager for Pro Racing Ontario, Darryl Timmers, and it was the Canadian Grand Prix this weekend.
It was. Actually, it was kind of a little bit of drama here and there.
It was like edge of your seat.
Yeah, but then it never came.
And then you wanted something to happen, but nothing really happened. Anyhow, it's still nice to see Formula One back in Canada after a couple of years, with COVID and that. And obviously they raced there last year, but sellout record attendance just down in the 514 this weekend at the circuit. Gilles Villeneuve. The sport is growing here in the country, which is why we do the show. We absolutely love it. So make sure you continue to support motor racing, whether that be grassroots or all the way up to Formula One as it comes to the country. We love to see it. Now let's kick this thing off. Red Bull, dominant yet again. Max Verstappen finishes P1, Fernando Alonso P2, Lewis Hamilton P3. To Max, 41 wins in his career, ties Senna.
Yeah,
he's definitely going past Senna at this point.
Yeah, for sure he will.
And Red Bull as a constructor, 100 wins as a constructor, cementing them as, a top-tier team in the history of Formula One. How did the Fizzy Pops company become one of the best teams in Formula One?
That's, do you want to hear the real truth?
I do.
Money. No, they've done really well. You know, when they first came into the sport, they've kind of jumped into the sport and were pretty successful right away, right? And, for them to actually be funding pretty much two teams on the grid.
That's right.
They're doing it right. You got one team that you bounce all your information off of and the other team that you perform with. Everyone keeps saying that they can't understand why the AlphaTauri is so slow. Well, if you look at it, they're probably doing 90% of the testing for Red Bull right now, so that they can keep that budget capped down. And hey, whatever happens to the AlphaTauri is always going to be there, just for this exact reason. Let's help them develop that Red Bull, and they get the leftovers.
There's another component to it as well. I mean, they've had some fantastic drivers under the tent.
Yes.
When you go Sebastian Vettel to hiatus for a few, and then you get Max
Mark
Verstappen.
Webber, you get friggin'.
They've had top tier guys.
You had Webber.
But the guys that stick out to me are the Sebs and the Verstappens of the world, and then they've managed to acquire top tier talent.
Yes. On
the engineering side of things,
and
like
really Adrian Newey is the reason Red Bull has all these championships. Really and truly, that guy's design is unbelievable. He's been trying to retire
and they won't let him retire.
They've been trying to retire since Vettel was around, and they won't let him go because I don't know what they're going to do when he leaves. The first time he left, they're like, okay, well, let's give you a partial schedule. Okay, let's just do this. And he just gets less and less at the track. You see him at the track, 3-4 races a year. He's at the factory majority of the time, developing this car, and he straight up told him from the get-go, like, I'm done traveling to every single race. I'm done doing the crazy life of a motorsports guy, and I think in the end they know they need him. He'll always be around. He gets a massive paycheck to stick around for pretty much a quarter of the work he does now. And that car is still dominant. You cannot take anything from Adrian Newey. You can't take anything from Horner as well. He's been around since the beginning, and he's turned that team into what it is. As a team principal, it's
gotta give respect where respect is due. You could look at a guy or a character, let's say like Horner, and feel one way. He's smug. He's this. He's that. Whatever. But if you know the story, this is a guy who put it all out on the line, and you kind of. I personally like to see the dividends being reaped. 10, 15, 20 years down the line. And if you haven't checked out Christian Horner's story, just do yourself a favor. Just go take a look and see what it really took to get the Fizzy Pops company to #1 and arguably one of the greatest teams ever in the history of Formula One. Now, speaking of Adrian Newey, speaking of the development trend, while there is no Adrian Newey at Aston Martin, that car is still very good. Fernando Alonso finishes P2 yet again for the season. The gap is closing between Aston and Red Bull, or it would appear that way for now. I think Max is holding a little back. But they brought upgrades this weekend, and there's a stark contrast between the two drivers. Lance Stroll has been in the conversation over the past couple of weeks in terms of performance, because you're looking at a guy who's put it on a podium every race except for one this year. What's the story with Aston Martin? Do you see a future with a team where Lance is no longer driving for them? Like, realistically,
that's never going to happen. The whole reason that Lawrence is there is to make sure that his son is in F1.
Right.
he's going to have amazing teammates for his whole career. And honestly, in the end, you got to think, you know, where there's an amazing designer at Red Bull, that's Adrian Newey, you look at the Red Bull team, it's like, okay, everyone kind of follows what he wants the car to do, what his designs and what his brain is thinking. Where the engineers at Aston Martin has a really good driver, Alex Alonso, so they can listen to them and really develop that car in a positive direction of being like, no, we need to do this, we need to do this. And the engineers are like, okay, I get what you're saying, but this. Yeah. Okay, let's do this. And you know, they sit there for a while and kind of chat about what they want to go. Where, you know, you take someone like Newey, it's like, no, this is what we're doing because of this. And you know, that's kind of how Red Bull has been successful. You know, it's kind of like, this is the one guy that makes the decisions and where they're going with the design. The engineers back up what he's thinking, and you know, obviously everyone kind of puts it together from there. Where Aston Martin uses Alonso and his feedback and what he thinks that the direction of the car should go to make the car the way it is. Where you know, Max kind of, yes, I like this change, or this change is really good, we can do this more. It's not do this to the car. It's like, hey, I want this in that direction.
It's not a fundamental development strategy from Max. Yeah. It's feedback and fine tuning.
Exactly.
Whereas, you know, if you look at Aston Martin, where they finished last year in the constructor versus this year in the constructor, and the one real significant change has been Fernando Alonso being placed into the car, and he's backing it up with results. I mean, still no win yet.
Yep.
But the gap is getting closer, and who knows? We're 9 races in, almost halfway through the season. It definitely looks. I mean, it has to be the surprise of F1 this year.
Think so.
You know what I mean? And if Stroll was anywhere near Alonso for most of the finishes, you know, we would be looking at a constructors that's pretty much out of reach for the remainder. You know, Mercedes, Ferraris, etc. But with that being said, Mercedes is in the picture now.
Yeah.
They're in the picture. They started the year down and out. They've changed everything. Their philosophy, their concept. George Russell kind of been it this week and had to retire from the race. But had he not, we would have been looking at a very, very tight P2 constructors. Well, it is tight still, but this weekend it would have been, you know, it would have been, let's say, more of a stark contrast because, you know, George would have finished ahead of Lance, let's say. But yeah, will this actually be the theme for the rest of the 2023 season? Who's going to finish in P2 in the constructors? And the championship's getting tight too.
Yeah. I think that's what we're looking at now.
Like, that's all we have to look forward to now.
Really,
because we know.
Even if Max crashes out of 3 races, he's still leading.
He's still up. He's still up. Well, that's the thing. He still is because Sergio can't.
See, Sergio has been, you know, he's kind of been hurt in the last couple of races, but you know, and then there's that politics where everyone's like they're probably sabotaging his car and all this other stuff that you're hearing.
He's out of it though.
I honestly think, why sabotage him? There's no reason to sabotage him when Max has such a big lead and they need him to.
Okay, we'll get back to Mercedes and Aston Martin quickly. We didn't talk about Perez, but the confidence, again, we spoke about it after Monaco in regards to Ocon, and since, you know, Ocon has been like, he's on it.
Yeah.
You know, like he's maximizing points for Alpine.
Yeah.
And we talked about the confidence, and in the other way, we've got a guy with Checo who just looks like he's just down and out. Yeah. And no matter what, he's got the fastest car on the grid by a landslide.
Yeah.
And he's still not able
to keep up with his teammate.
Like, even in qualifying and all that. But even still, he still should be able to pick through and get a podium every race, man. Like,
it looks like he's just, I don't know what it is. Maybe just struggle, he might be having a mental block right now, you know, like after having a chance at the championship at the start of the season, you know, starting off strong, getting some wins, getting the win and getting on the podium all the time and consistent and being able to go blow for blow with Max for the first little bit. You know, it's a confidence thing when all of a sudden you can't even get past the mid-pack with the same car, you know, and really and truly, if you look at, you know, what he's been doing lately, it's kind of subpar, you know, like it's one of those, he doesn't seem comfortable, he's always complaining, and it's like, you know, people are like, well, he probably doesn't have the same car as Max. It's like, at this point, he does have the same car.
But it's also qualifying out of position, crashing, shooting yourself in the foot, right? Like, that's my whole thing with Perez. It's like, some of it's self-induced. I think the team kind of took responsibility for his lack of the qualifying this weekend at the Canadian GP, but the crashes in Monaco and that, like, they set you back so far. You know what I mean? And it's like you shoot yourself in the foot and you can't really do much, and then all of a sudden you're questioning yourself and you're questioning the car, and then there's external sources saying, whispering, and meanwhile Max is just driving away.
It's a mental game at that point, keeping mentally stable enough to be able to, make sure that you're in your own world when you're out there. You have to stay focused. You cannot look at what all the media is saying and stuff like that, and the second you think about that in the car, stuff like that's going to go wrong. And you saw with George, a small little error, and boom, he's in the wall.
Uncharacteristic too.
Very uncharacteristic.
Yeah, he just took too much curb on the chicane, and it kind of just launched him, and then he tried to save it, and
he was just a little bit off on the first right, and then it kind of put him wide on exit and put him onto the curb, and
that was it.
Max did kind of the same thing and saved it when he was like, "Hey, I almost took me out of the race." And he laughed about it. I almost crashed.
Oh, man.
All right, I'm gonna keep going now.
All right, back to Aston and Mercedes, more particularly Fernando and Lewis. We thought yesterday we were gonna get a battle for P2. Lewis was closing down on the mids, on the mediums.
Got within 1.2 and then
and
dropped the hammer.
Yeah, and then Alonso just had some in the stove, and he kind of ratcheted it back up. Now we've seen some upgrades. Mercedes brought them in Monaco. Aston brings them in Canada. This is going to be it for a while.
Yeah, I would think so until after the summer break.
So what do you think? I'll be honest. It looks like we're going to see a lot more of, based off the couple races. It looks like we're going to see a lot more clash between Lewis and Fernando.
Yes.
And I know Mercedes was kind of downplaying it going into the weekend. Oh, the upgrades don't suit the track and da-da-da-da-da. But if there's pace in Max's Red Bull, there's like a good amount of speed in those other two cars, right?
No, this is honestly the first weekend that I can say that Mercedes looked good. Like obviously it's not a Red Bull, but they looked good. The car looked stable. It didn't look like it was porpoising or anything like that, and it just seemed like it was drivable. Like before, every time you were on an onboard with them, it was just like, that thing just looks like a handful. It's understeer and it's snap oversteer and it looks like crap. And then all of a sudden this weekend, it was like, Hamilton was pushing it and trying to, catch that pack in front of him. I think if, there was
a safety car.
Yeah.
And what happened, it was interesting.
Yes.
Because the safety car came and it went back, and George was out just behind Fernando at that point. And Fernando had lost the DRS from Lewis, and George had got it.
Yeah.
So now it looked like Fernando was going to be on the defense for a bit.
Yep.
And then that all kind of went away after he passed Lewis, whatever.
Yeah.
But I still think it's an Aston Martin advantage. But what I hope is that we can actually get some quality racing up at the front.
Yeah, even if it's for second, like.
Well, this is where we're at, bro. We're at like I said, I don't think Max is really
not pushing that car.
There's no way you can sell me on he gave it full beans yesterday.
Yeah, no. I don't think he's gone full beans yet. Really and truly, this whole entire season, I don't think he is being at 100%.
I think we're seeing the car's full potential in qualifying.
Yes. Yeah.
But in race trim,
I don't think you've even seen 90% out of it.
So what's going on at Ferrari then? Because we're looking at a car.
That's a disaster.
Listen,
honestly, I just don't.
What is going on?
Why not pit on the safety car?
Well, they were trying to get up to track, and to their credit, it did kind of work.
It kind of worked
because they finished 4 or 5.
Yeah, but then in the end, that's where they're going to. I feel
they
like
were going to finish
there anyways.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was helping them doing this. Maybe get on the same tire strategy. Be on the same tires as them coming to the green.
My thing is, what are you guys doing in quali?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
You got they have.
Science was dangerous.
that part, and on the other side of dangerous in a good way. You have one of the best qualifying one-lap performers in the sport.
Yeah.
And you just can't seem to get your together.
Yeah.
To give him a shot at least starting in a good grid spot.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, not making it out of Q2?
Yeah,
that's egregious. That's
when they don't, then they didn't take into account the timing, and then they were like, "Well, we're not going to."
And I understand it was tricky conditions, blah blah blah, but everybody had the same conditions.
Everyone did. Everyone got more laps than they did.
Like
I don't know, man.
If you thought Bernardo was the problem, it's not.
No.
This is like it's not a top. This is a whole structure, dude. Yeah. Like this is a. I think Leclerc needs a new engineer.
Man, you know what's a big slap in the face? Is that they won them all. That's a big slap.
Yeah, Giovinazzi walking around there as a
champion. No, he's like,
shouts to him though.
Yeah, great shot. Yeah, that car was fast. Like for them to develop something like that.
Yeah.
And then go into a 24-hour race, and their strategy is on point in the 24-hour race, but they can't get a 2-hour race down. Maybe they just take that team and bring it over. And
the satellite team just come in for a weekend and try to sort itself out. Like, we don't even have any answers. I feel it because we talked about all of this last year, and then they made the change at the top, and you're thinking something's going to change around. Okay, the car, the development, but like you started last season, first year of the new regs, winning races. Put it in on and now you're not, and it can happen, but this is too many times you're not making it into Q3, and like, just, all the stuff with Leclerc, throwing away victories last year. It's just, it's a mess over there. And then you got Sainz doing just dangerous stuff. It's just like, what is happening up there, man?
I don't know, man. I feel like everyone's just thinking on their own and not as a team. I feel like they're just kind of, someone's like, no, let's do this decision, and they're half the teams, like majority of the teams, probably like, that's not a good decision, but that person's like, no, I'm doing the decision. I think there's just some turmoil in that team that, one, they don't trust each other at all. Yeah. Especially when they're out there, like you can tell from the drivers always second guessing everything they're doing.
Yeah.
And then
well, you can tell even with the radios, like, don't worry, Sainz will not attack.
Yeah. You should go after Hamilton. It's like.
No, that one is interesting. Yeah. Don't worry, Sainz will not attack, right? That's interesting. Yeah. Because it's a rule for sure, like a team rule. Like, hey, don't attack our number one on Sainz's side of things. I would argue that for the past 3 to 4 races, Sainz has had the mark on Leclerc. And at the same time, they just not really competing. They're not rate. Nobody wants to hear that. And if Sainz came on the radio the way Fernando did last week and said, I won't attack Lance, that's a different story.
That's a different story.
Right?
Yeah. No, that's I just don't understand what's going on over there. Like, it's for a team that is like being in this, like the longest team in the sport.
Yeah, man.
They can't just figure this out. Like, maybe they should go ask Enzo what to do.
Yeah. Seriously, yeah. They need to shape up.
Go have a little spiritual talk or something, because something's not working, man. I don't know.
On the other side of things that are working, I gotta give props to Williams.
Oh man.
Albon. We mentioned Ocon as well, but I think the story of this weekend was Albon.
He was on pole in Q2. In
Q2, yeah, they made the right tire strategy, went for it, and even Lewis was like, "Why aren't we doing what they're doing?" Yeah. But what a race! He spent the better half of that race
with 5 defending on his bumper,
with 5 of them on the DRS. He didn't have DRS, and he just made it work.
Yeah,
dude,
that just proves how
fast straight line. Yeah, I thought it was an incredible drive from him.
I agree. You can't take that away from him. He drove his butt off. He, like we said, he defended. He didn't even really have to defend. Like, he was just
he wasn't coming off the line.
Like, he was just driving and nailed his marks. He had to get out of that hairpin.
Yes,
perfect to get onto the straightaway. And he did it 25 laps straight.
Yeah,
and kept everyone.
It was just tactical, aware.
Yeah. Calm,
and the communication between him and the team. Yeah. Just make sure you get through this section. They don't have it on the straight. Like, I just thought it was a master class. Yeah. And even though it was for P7 later down the grid, it was just a great show of, like you said, driving, breaking point, reference point, turn in, power down, charge the battery, like.
He knew that level, when to do it,
yeah, you know what I mean. And then the team, just in general. I mean, Logan Sargent, he had some upgrades this weekend. Sargent, DNF, it happens. It's his first season. He's gonna kind of come to grips with it. But I just think that team, man, with especially when you hear it right at the top, James, the way they're discussing things and moving forward, it's just like they are on the right track. Yes. to bring that Williams name back to prominence. Yeah.
Oh, I agree, man, and I would love to see it. I think everyone in the sport who's actually part of the sport, would love to see that Williams name right back to the top of the charts again. And it's one of those situations where the confidence level of the drivers, knowing that they might not have a car to win, but they have a car that can compete,
get points,
and then that's all that the confidence needs. And Albon, we've always said, you got the short end of the stick at Red Bull. Red Bull's just a cutthroat seat, Helmet.
It is what it is.
Yeah, Helmet's a cutthroat guy, and that's part of the reason of their success. Helmet's been there since the beginning too. Can't take anything away from that, but Albon clearly can drive. Albon should be on that grid.
The kid can wheel. If you give Albon a weapon, like if he somehow lands in a Ferrari, an Aston Martin now, like that probably won't happen. Well, you never know, Fernando. I don't know. All I'm saying is if he ends up with a top tier team like he's in the last place team.
Yeah, he is.
Really
and truly, he's battling for it.
And they're doing well now. I wouldn't say they're the last place team now. I think AlphaTauri got that sewn up.
Yeah.
But if he was, we'll see what happens in the future. But I was looking at this guy. He's a savage, and he raced with them karting days. All of those drivers on the grid know how talented he is.
Yes.
They know 100%. If he gets in a top tier car, watch out.
Yeah.
So there it is. Let's do overwhelmed, underwhelmed, surprise Canadian Grand Prix.
Surprise got to be Albon, man.
There it is.
That is. That's one of those things that he performed. His car was great. I wish Sargent was able to kind of take that, maximize the points on that too if his car was actually running. But it is what it is. But yeah, I got to say, surprise for Albon.
All right,
great. Overwhelmed. I got to say that finish of Stroll. I don't know how he beat Bottas to the line.
He just pipped him
by 300ths of a second. I was So he is. I had him on fantasy, and I was like, man, come on, you had such a bad drive, and I'm like, no, hold on.
Yeah.
He's 11th. Okay, no, my God, that's cool.
And then with the Norris penalty.
And then he jumped in the time. I was like, you got him at the end. I'm like, good job. And then boom, Norris got the penalty, and all of a sudden you're P9.
Yep.
So I was jumping up and down for my own personal gain off
monetary gain.
Nice. But underwhelming. Ooh, the only thing I'm gonna say is Perez, man.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't understand. I kind of understand. I can see with all the pressure, with everyone talks about he's gone next year, blah 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 blah. It's the same type of thing that's going on with other teams when it's like De Vries losing his ride halfway through the season.
Yeah, and even Lance Stroll this week.
Yeah,
like going into your home Grand Prix and the talk is, this guy needs to go.
Yeah, but really and truly, he ain't going anywhere.
He ain't going anywhere.
His dad's not gonna fight.
Nah. He ain't going.
But in the end, I gotta say underwhelmed's got to be Perez. I honestly hope this turns around from him. I think he needs maybe a big win to go between from now until the summer break, which would get that confidence a little bit up. Because really and truly, I don't think Red Bull is doing anything to that car that they need. They straight up said in the qualifying they screwed up. Is what it is, when the team
that'll happen though.
Yeah,
that'll happen. We've seen that happen. Yeah, we've seen that. Lewis almost got caught out this weekend in Q2, right? Honorable mention to McLaren this weekend.
Talk about
and in particular, Oscar Piastri. Norris was. What's the penalty with Norris about?
It was him. So during the safety car, he came out of the hairpin and gave I'm gonna be nice and say 3/4 of that straightaway gap.
So it's the 10 car length,
and it's that whole length between the cars.
Cars.
He was way too far back. You couldn't even see the car in front of him.
Yeah.
And then he took off. I didn't know it until after, and I had to go and research what the heck happened. And why it happened. But it was just because he left too big of a gap. And if you look at the onboard, there is an onboard out there, and when you can't see the car in front of you, it's come on, man.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 10 car lengths.
And then another little, I guess, little tidbit.
Yeah,
tidbit that I was going to mention is everyone was like, oh, look at this Red Bull, it's so fast. Max was on the tires right away and took off, and everyone's like, oh, that car is so good on cold tires. I don't think so. He went the entire straightaway, swerving in front of that pack, but everyone else sat behind being like, okay, when's he going to go, and he was
right,
keep warming up my tires.
Yeah.
No problem. And everyone behind him except Alonso, who was another one that was
that was the VSC.
That was the safety car because they came out of the last out of that.
Because I knew Alonso after the VSC, Alonso was all over Lewis.
And Lewis lost 2 seconds. To
yes,
race Max
and then
in the safety car,
and then in the safety car,
because they were waiting for Max.
You're right.
To go.
He was going back and forth, but
everyone else was sitting there on his bumper,
on throttle,
and he was just like for an entire. And that's one of the longest straightaways on the calendar. And he went the entire straightaway just going whoop, 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 whoop. And then as soon as he got to the corner, he's like, well, all their tires are cold. See you later.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And that was also and then, like you said, it's the longest straightaway, so he's trying to not give anybody the toe.
The toe to get
right?
Like, so he swerved the entire straightaway to get
made
tires.
it to the chicane and was like, goodbye.
Yep. And you saw, as soon as he got on throttle, it was a straight line takeoff. Lewis got on throttle, and it was just like, rah!
Yeah. And you know what, though? But that's the thing, man. You got to give it to Max. He is on top of his game.
He's smart.
I even got to give it to, credit to the team, credit to Max. That quali 3, he was out there first.
Yeah.
The world champion. First out there to set the time, because he knows you never know.
You never know. You got to get that time in, especially with
like Nico. Shouts out to Nico.
Yeah.
Like, he put it, but this is what I'm saying. When it comes to, we were talking earlier in the discussion about, Red Bull being, a energy drink company. One of the greatest Formula One teams when it's all said and done. Max, potentially the best driver of all time. And it's like, well, these things are coming together because
all the pieces
he's got it together, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Red Bull put all the right people in the right spot to make them have a successful, season or a successful team.
Yeah.
The team ever since the beginning has always had the right people in the right areas to make that car develop in the right direction.
Right.
And it wasn't like first season they were winning. No, they hacked away at it.
Chip away,
and boom, they put the right people in the right spots, and all of a sudden now they're one of the winningest teams in the sport, and
I gotta be honest, man, I don't see them losing a race this weekend unless it's a DNF. You know what I mean?
Really,
I really don't.
Really, so, I don't either. It's a DNF.
Well, we'll be here to talk about it if it does happen. That might give us a spike with the algorithm.
Yeah.
But, until that time, for Darryl Timmons, I'm Dames. Thanks for watching another Race Weekend Canada's F1 show. We'll catch you next time.